Wow, I am really bad with technology.
This has all forced us to get used to tools that we're not used to, so.
Okay. I think that's it. Can you see everything?
Yeah, that looks good. Wait, what time are we?
Where's my mouse? Jeez.
I just understood virtual backgrounds and I'm really using them on tech.
Is that your dog?
Yes, he's back home in India right now, so I'm really loving this.
That's cute. So he's there with you.
Yeah, this is him when he was a puppy.
Oh my goodness.
Just gonna leave it like this.
Is he a beagle?
Yeah.
I used to have a beagle too.
He would teeth on books and like just chew corners of them.
Yeah, our beagle was impossible to train, and he would only eat his food if my mom mixed in like meatballs and tomato sauce, and it was crazy spoiled.
Gotta love it, a dog.
All right, so it's 12. So do you want to, let's get started.
Right.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and take it from there.
All right, so welcome. Thank you for being here and coming to listen to me talk your ear off for 20 minutes. So this is Fail Step, redesigning failure to fail better. So I'm going to introduce myself real quick. That is me. My name is Danielaguzman. I'm a graphic designer and Colombian and raised in Miami. Just to give you a little bit more background, I've been doing graphic design for the last 8 years. So this is like a really big topic for me. Just to let you understand why I chose failure, like such a big thing that most people in their right mind would run away from and never think about. I chose it because it's something it's a really big passion of mine. Not failing, but succumbing failure, passing failure, growing from failure. Like I said, I'm Colombian, so at the age of 4, my mom packed up and we moved to the States so I could have a better education, have better opportunities. And so with that being said, that's a lot of pressure that I gave myself to grow, to succeed. So that's the basis. That's what inspired me to figure out why. Why am I so scared of failing? Why is failure such a big thing in people's lives? And I realized that while I was trying to figure out this thesis. So why now? Like, why am I doing this now? I'm doing this now because as I was sitting there trying to figure out what am I going to do for this thesis? Like, what am I going to do that will sum up the last 4 years of learning? I was stumped. I had no clue. I sat there for months, like trying to figure out. My teacher, Lisa, who was watching, will tell you I was probably the last one to submit a proposal because I was just scared. Like I had no idea what I was going to do, what I was going to say, what I wanted to do it on. And then it clicked. I was like, I need to do it on failure. Like it's the one thing that has made sense to me that's been driving me, but why? Like it shouldn't be driving me. My success should be driving me. And so I picked failure. And then I gotten a pretty good sense of my footing on the ground. And then coronavirus hit, swept the rug from under my feet. I had no idea what I was going to do. Everything seemed up in the air. And I was like, oh, I'm going to fail. Like, how am I possibly going to overcome this? And then I was like, no, like, I need to teach myself what I'm preaching, what I want to do, what I want other people to learn. I'm going to take this as an opportunity and I'm going to grow. So that's kind of the abstract of the thing. So what's the big problem? The big problem that I'm trying to learn and teach and express is that the fear of failure and the concept of failure is impacting creators' careers and their creative processes. failure is scary, and that's just the blunt of it. So for the last 6 months, I've been asking myself, how can I help creators view failure as a positive and not fear failure, but embrace it? And then thinking about it more and why I really, really felt so scared was this. And this is the second question that I was kind of tackling along the way. And it's, how can I counteract the highlight reel effect that social media has on creators' perception of success? And so, like, what do I mean by that? It's amazing how social media has provided such a platform for artists to share all of their work. And it's incredible. You see amazing work every day, every second of the day. You're surrounded by it. And at least myself, I can't help but compare myself to that constantly. And it's not necessarily fair when you're learning, when you're in the midst of the beginning of a project, seeing someone's success that you haven't seen the process for. You haven't seen their failures to get to that success. And why is that? Why are we so scared of talking about failure? We only post our successes. So then I went into my research, and I, again, was stuck. I had no idea where I was going. And it was just kind of like a constant battle of like me versus this project. And it was a very meta situation of like, I'm going to fail and this is gonna help me somehow, but I need to figure it out. And if I do fail, I guess technically I'll learn from it. So I just started like any good graphic designer would do, and I Googled it. I was like, what is failure? And I learned a lot actually from this really simple Google search. And I kind of broke it down into like 4 categories of like how people experience failure. So it's reluctance to try new things, self-sabotage, low self-confidence, and perfectionism. And for me, number 4 really hit home. I need to do it, and I can only do it if I can do it perfect. But then how will I ever learn? You know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't do something because you're not good at it, how will you ever be good at it? And that was like my biggest problem and what I really struggled with throughout this whole process. And then I also did some more research just into background, and I learned about Stoicism. And it's something so big and so heavy. It's like a big philosophical thing. But it kind of broke down to just being kind of like an operating system. In a way to thrive in high stress environments, to make better decisions, and like a way of living your life. So the kind of basis of Stoicism for me was separating what you can control and what you can't control, and focusing fully on what you can. Because if you focus on what you can't control, you will feel like you're failing because you literally can't control it, versus like focusing on what you can control. And that really drove a lot of my research and a lot of the stuff that I was doing for this project. And then rhetoric. And it's something that we all learned back in high school. Like, we all learned rhetoric, ethos, pathos, and such. But talking about rhetoric more in the sense of like personally. I learned about this thing called approach goals versus avoidance goals. So when you talk to yourself about what you're doing and what your goals are, if you say, okay, I'm doing this project and I really don't want to fail, that sets a stress level off the roof, because you're thinking about failure from the start. You're thinking about how things are going to be hard, how things might go wrong, versus if you set an approach goal, is like, oh, okay, I'm doing this project and I'm going to succeed. That already sets you up to be in a good spot, to know what you're working for and know what you're saying and know what you're going to do. So with all that background knowledge that I learned, I went on into interviewing people that would be affected by this. So I interviewed 34 creators, 34 makers from the ages of 21 to 45. So big gap from college students all the way to working professionals. And they're all from different fields: copywriting, set design, animators, anyone who makes, anyone who would feel this and heavy. And out of those people, I asked them, like, are you scared of failing? How much are you scared of failing? And 85.3% of them admitted to me that they're terrified of failing. And like, to me, that was daunting because I felt like I was the only one, because you get so wrapped up in your own life that you realize that everyone around you is kind of going through the same thing. Then I asked, how do you manifest your fear? And to surprise to no one, 82% of the people said that they were procrastinating. 73% were avoiding it. 70% also suffered with perfectionism, and 67% said they had low confidence. So then I asked a really important question. How do you define failure in your own life? And I got a variety of answers, but the biggest one to me was making avoidable mistakes, which is kind of an interesting one for me, because how do you make an avoidable mistake? If it was avoidable, you wouldn't have made the mistake. But then if you made the mistake, you can learn from it. And I got a bunch of different answers. I got procrastinating. I got feeling less than, being afraid. And all of those I saw and I understood and I agreed with. But then I asked another question. I said, what do you wish was available to get you through it? And making a step in pushing through it. And everyone said the same thing. All 34 people gave me a variety of the same answer in different ways. A mentor, open-minded discussions, an online support network, a colleague to talk to, ability to talk about my fears openly. So what I got from all of that is that people just want a place to come together. People want to feel like they're not alone, and people want accessible resources. So then what did I come up with? Out of all of that research, what came of all of it? And I came up with this 3-part plan. It was 1, get rid of the connotation of failure. Forget about failure, completely redefine it, and get a better understanding of what you really should do with it. And 2, make a space for creators to connect about failure. And 3, provide resources for creators to make things less daunting. So with part 1, I redefined failure. I renamed it. Fail step is the act of viewing an unwanted outcome as a positive and using that experience for future gain. So it's really just a mindset that I have created. It's just taking those failures, taking things that you wish never happened, and learning from that entire process. So in the next step, it'll be better because you'll learn from it and you'll know what you're doing and you know what you're gonna do. And then part 2, making. And that was for sure the hardest part, because you never know where to start. So I just started writing things down. I'm a writer. I'm not a writer, but I write things down. My way of making is by jotting and notes and sketches, and I felt stuck. So I made stamps, I decorated, I just tried to get started, and I went through the process. I made a font, I made a logo, I went through any possibility. I talked to my peers, I talked to my teachers, and I started, and I figured out I wanted to do a website. And I went into wireframings, and I just tried to figure out what are things that I can put into this thing that would connect people, that would make people feel like they have others to talk to and connect with, people that are going through the same thing. And then I think the most important part, visual research. I needed to make a space to make failure not feel like the most terrifying thing in the world. So I needed to figure out what colors will be inviting, what message do I want to send, how do I get people to come to this website and not feel overwhelmed by the big sticker shock of like, oh, I'm gonna go talk about failure. And so then with 3, I created a website with everything and providing these resources. So this is the homepage. It's failstep.com. You come in and you are prompted with the definition of what FailStep is. You're given an opportunity to sign up for a newsletter that would go straight to your email just to get tips and tricks and stories from other creators. and a social media feed where anyone who was using this hashtag failstep would be fed right into the home screen, and you can see other people succeeding and other people sharing everything that they're doing. And then I kind of separated it into 3 other parts. So first part is the blog. It's kind of a place where people could write what happened, give advice, rant, share what they learned, and comment with one another, interact with one another, help each other. There's one particular story that I heard when I was doing research from a good friend of mine back in high school. She applied to get the Fulbright scholarship, and she was pushed by one of her professors, and she had never done something like this, something that was completely out of her wheelhouse, and she didn't get chosen. But she was looking back on it, and the whole step of like doing the application and putting herself in a place where she would have never done something like this and giving herself that opportunity made her realize that pushing yourself to do things that you aren't comfortable with like makes you grow. And I thought that was a great story and fit perfectly with what I was trying to do. And that's just one of the many stories that could be shared, and like people could see that they're not alone. And then secondly, as cheesy as it sounds, mantras, quotes, things that drive you, sayings that you say to yourself that keep you going. Like, for example, I have my own, and it's, if you feel comfortable, you should be fearful, because that means you're not growing, you're not learning. And I got many quotes from many different creators, and everyone's like, yeah, like I do say something myself and it keeps me going. And just hearing how other people view creating and view their path to success is so incredible. So I put it all together. You can see them, scroll and just read them all and take it in. And secondly, I did a planning. So when you're stuck, when you don't know what to do, when you're having a hard time organizing, having a place where you can just go and read and understand and learn, get tricks, get tips. Whether it's organizing and starting with a calendar, getting everything set, or motivation, a place where you could find like great ways to do yoga or something that's like outside of what you're doing, take a step back and start fresh and start right. And making even the smallest stride is a big thing. And that's what I want to do with this page. And then what I think is most importantly is I did all this research. I have hours of TED Talks. I read books and I listened to podcasts and I went to websites and I learned about Stoicism and rhetoric and about everybody else's way of researching this. And it was all so over the place and so incredibly overwhelming. I put it all in one place. TED Talks, everything, one place where people could just go, read, understand, and educate themselves. And then finally, the store, which is like, oh yeah, like a website has a store, but for me, it kind of meant a little more. So one of my favorite YouTubers, their channel is called Yes Theory. And their whole thing is seeking discomfort and saying yes to life and keep going. And they have merch. And the thing about the merch is whenever I see anyone walking around with Seek Discomfort merch and t-shirts, hoodies, or whatever, I'm like, oh, like this person knows what I believe in. Like there's someone that I can talk to about my adventures, about seeking discomfort. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with FailStep. Take it out of like the online world and bring it into the physical. Give an opportunity to people to connect with others when it's not necessarily comfortable. So it's kind of like a way to say, hello, I'm open to talking to you about this, and I believe in what you believe in, and kind of giving you an opening to being able to talk to others. And then, so with that being said, like at the end of all of this, I kind of got into the mindset of wanting to grow and forgetting failure. So I kind of wanted it to look a little bit like this. So that's you. And you're just saying goodbye to failure and saying hello to FailStep. And that's it. Thank you.
Excellent job. Thank you for sharing. And I applaud your passion, you know, for the topic and for your research. You know, it looks like you had this sort of conundrum where your fear of failure was stopping you and holding you back from, you know, proceeding with your project on failure. And so it's sort of a great case study in of itself. So I really applaud you for putting that out there and pushing through that struggle. I think that can be really hard. And, you know, in art and design, the white page or the canvas is always the most daunting. And so you had to start somewhere. And so really applaud you for pushing through that and finding your way and being resilient to, you know, this COVID-19 epidemic that we find ourselves in right now. So great job there. Very nice. So yeah, your research was wonderful too. And I really think that your, where you came to with the whole stoicism and the personal rhetoric component of it, you know, I was really impressed by that, because I feel like you don't really associate those words too much with failure or procrastinating due to failure, fears of failure. And it's sort of like, it just turns it around a little bit, and sort of how you approach that. The idea of making people feel like they're not alone, you know, this is something that's very common in creative people. You know, if I can't do it right,